client would come in through Flowify, and our LOS was in Salesforce, and Salesforce would connect to UWM. It was unbelievable.
Anthony Casa is by far one of the most controversial people in our mortgage industry. And I didn't know him personally, but I felt compelled to reach out to him because I wanted to get to know this guy because he caused so much emotion in me from years ago when I liked him for what he stood for when he started AIM. And then all of a sudden, I actually hated him. I was like, man, this guy is ruining our industry and our good name. And then all of a sudden, fast forward 10 years later, and I like him again. And he's been somehow able to create this emotion in me that nobody else seems to do. But I got to say, anybody that has the capability of doing that is pretty special. They have something special about him. And he's had one successful mortgage company down to a very successful building of AIM, and then to Arrive, and now UMortgage. I mean, everything he touches, it I don't want to say it blows up, because it can also blow up in a bad way sometimes, but he does bring something to the table that's really special. And you guys are going to love this show. He talks about everything from his sobriety and how much that changed him, how humbled he got and how it was the best thing that ever happened to him. He talks about strategy on what to do if you're a brand new loan officer, talks about how to have longevity in the industry. So from A to Z, basically, we cover all of it. Hope you guys enjoy the show as much as I did. Anthony Casa is up next. Here we are with Anthony Casa. Thanks for joining me, man.
Oh man, I've been looking forward to this. I'm excited for this conversation, and great to spend some time with you.
I got to tell you, I reached out to you and you never responded. And then I reached out again one other time and you didn't respond. And then I asked Greg Share to reach out to you, and you finally responded. So I feel very like, this is a great day because I got you on the show, and I've been wanting to meet you forever. I know we connected a while back, and you and I talked, and we have a ton in common. So I'm just really happy you're here, and I can't wait to hear your story.
Absolutely, man. And please don't take it as offense. It has nothing to do with you. I have literally learned to like have my blinders on, because I just, LinkedIn, I'm getting a million messages. I'm sure you get the same stuff. I've got a million companies pitching me on AI, and like at a certain point, if you don't turn things off, you're never going to spend any time on the things that matter.
Yeah, man. With LinkedIn, it's like I'm trying hard to pay attention to it, but sometimes I just can't get over all of these stupid messages. I wish there was a way for me to like filter that and turn it off.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm going to miss something good every once in a while because I just don't pay attention to it anymore because of that. So
Yeah.
anyway, welcome.
Happy to be here.
So I was thinking about the the lead up to this, and what I was going to say and all that stuff. And I'm not quite sure if this is the right way, but I feel kind of like you're a movie star. Let me explain why. Because a movie star could be this person in real life, but plays many different roles.
Yeah.
And you have played so many roles in our mortgage industry. It's crazy. Like, I don't know if anybody else has actually played that many roles.
I don't think so, man. It feels like it's been a lot, and it's an ever evolving world. But I think your description is right. I think there's kind of who you're playing, and then who you are, and I think I've lived multiple lives in this business.
So I'm gonna get through all of that because I really am interested in it. So I want everybody to know who you are. But let's just start with the basics, right? Like today, who is Anthony Casa today, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, Anthony Casa today on the personal side, I'm super focused on my health. I'm really focused on my kids. I am really trying to make up for for the first half of my life where I was kind of one dimensional in many ways in my relationships and in my work. And I want to be a better version of myself in the second half of my life. So That's on the personal side. On the business side, I think a lot of that is also coming into the picture as well. I've been a very hard charging person in all my businesses, relentless, workaholic. And I still have that as the backbone, but I approach business in a very different way today. I'm really focused on, developing people into to be great leaders. I think over the years, like, the people that have worked with me, if you spend some time interviewing them, they would say, "Man, I was probably my most productive ever when I worked with Anthony, but I would never do that again." And and the reason why is, for many years, there were no stops, there were no breaks. It wasn't about developing the person other than for the mission that we were building together. It wasn't about developing them in their personal lives or any type of balance or anything like that. And today I've really changed. I focus on how we can develop the best people. And I believe if you develop the best people, you get the best version of them in work as well. And so far, it's been going extremely well. I'm really proud of the company we've built.
It reminds me of when I read the autobiography on Elon Musk. Um, People were doing great things, but man, would he just go through those people because nobody could keep up with him.
Yeah,
It was a day and night thing. There was no rest.
that's how it was for the first 20 years I did this. And I think Katie Sweeney used to say it all the time, kind of like this was her saying about me at AIM, was like, Anthony, you're like the sun, and the closer people get to you, the more they realize how hot it is. And, usually that's when people burn out. But I think, I had to go through some humbling experiences in my life and some changes in my life to get the perspective to realize that I can get the same outcomes, but I can do it in an entirely different a way that is a win-win for the people that are part of the team, which I don't know if I had that approach at any point in the first 20 years that I was in this business.
Yeah, so I normally don't go here, but I'm curious. I know who I am, and a lot of it came from my dad and growing up in a Greek family where, my dad taught me how to work. I mean, it's just what we did, right? At the age of 8, I was down at the restaurant working. And, by the time I was 10, I was giving out change to people, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but a grown ass adult can't give change back to somebody anymore. You know what I mean? At the age of 10, I was interacting with cash, doing stuff, and then by the age of like 12, I was flipping burgers and doing everything in the entire restaurant, right? And on weekends, I worked. I didn't go to the beach. I worked in the summertime. I worked, and I'm curious now. What was your upbringing like?
It was pretty chaotic, to be honest with you. I grew up in a really poor family. Like my family, at one point I was helping my parents with their tax returns, and they had never made more than like 16 or 17 grand a year. So, there was 5 siblings, including myself. We grew up super poor. I dropped out of school when I was 13. My dad had a stroke when I was 13, and I was the only one in my family that was actively working. My mom signed me out of school, and I went to go work full time in a family restaurant. And that's what I thought I was going to do. I never went back to school. I thought I was going to become a restaurant entrepreneur, and I had all these big visions of owning hundreds of restaurants. From an early age, I was working, 80 to 100 hours a week in that restaurant. And I tell people this, and I say, like, everything I learned in that restaurant still to this day informs the way I do things. I learned about how to treat people. I learned about customer service. I learned about employees. Like when you're working in a restaurant, it's a small team, and usually you're dealing with, people that, might have some bad habits, let's just say. And I learned at a very young age because I was managing this group of people, and I learned like, hey, if I hung out with the pizza guy until 11 o'clock at night, he would go home. But if I didn't hang out with him, he might go out drinking and he might not show up to work tomorrow. So like I just learned a lot of behaviors and a lot of things that, at the time I had a little bit of resentment and a chip on my shoulder towards my parents because I was like, man, all my friends are in high school and they're going to go to college and, they have a bright future. And here I am. and I'm managing people and working in a restaurant, getting to work at, 8 o'clock in the morning to prep and mopping floors at 11 o'clock. So I wasn't exactly happy about it at the time. But as I've grown up, it was the best experience I could have had. It shaped me. It gave me a lot of confidence in how to communicate. By the time I got into the mortgage industry at 18, I'd already been a grown man. I'd already learned how to run a business. I had already learned how to manage people. I learned how to deal with angry customers. So, it was an incredible experience for me, and it really set me up for what turned into a 23 plus year mortgage career.
Just out of curiosity, because I'm Greek, were the owners of the restaurant Greek?
No, it was an Italian restaurant.
Okay.
It was an Italian restaurant.
Yeah, I have many times over said to myself, I wish I had a restaurant so I could force my kids to work in it, because the lessons learned in a restaurant are just invaluable. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I too resented it a little bit, but it's just what we did, right? It's just there was no really alternative solution, right? Like, you just go to work. That's
Yep.
part of the family, right? Like, that's how we did it. And I lived in San Clemente, which is a little beach town. So on weekends in the summertime, everybody's showing up in their swimsuits and sand all over them, and I'm thinking to myself, it's 100 degrees back here, and I'm stuck working. There's got to be some law against this.
I'll tell you a very quick story. I got a buddy of mine a job, one of my closest friends when I was 4. It was hard. Like, working in this restaurant was hard. Like, I gotta say, this wasn't like the job that kids have today where they go kinda, like, go through the motions in a restaurant. Like, this was the kind of restaurant that if you were idle for a minute, they put your ass to work, cleaning the grease trap. Like, they believed no wasted money. So either you're off the clock or you're on the clock and working. So I had a buddy come to work at the restaurant, and he came to work for 1 day. And I remember at the end of the day being like, "Hey, I'll see you tomorrow, right?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow." Never showed up to work again. Like, that was the last time he ever. And that's when I kind of start to realize this concept of work ethic for the first time. Like, I was 14 years old at that time. I was like, "Oh, this is what work ethic looks like in a work environment."
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. Fast forward now, right? Like, here we are. Um, I feel like I have a couple superhuman strengths, right? One of them is people, because I actually love people, so it's easy for me to interact with them and all that. But the other one is I don't get tired. I can literally work all day long and just not get tired.
That's awesome.
It's the most unbelievable thing, right? Where most people will start to fade. They just can't go that extra mile without fading. So, um, seems like we have very much in common in that area, because you did put the hours in, you did do all that, and I like you have discovered over the years that that's not necessarily the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I do now look back and say I wish I could have done things a little bit different, and been more purposeful. I still, because I'm so structured, would have worked a lot and all that, but I would have said, like, if you look at my calendar right now, last Friday at 12 noon, I cut it, and I said I was going to take my kid to the beach because it's summertime, right? And I've been working so much again, but in my calendar for this Friday, doing the same thing, I'm cutting it at noon, and I'm taking my kid to the beach. Now, we got a window, right, where they're out of school and all that stuff, and I'm just like, that's it. That's what I have to do, right? Because if not, man, they don't see me when they wake up,
Yeah.
and then they only get a few hours of me, at night, and they stay up later than I do now. So I can't hang in there after 10 o'clock, right? I'm fading. Anyways, all right, man. So let's go back, right? Like, you were the CEO of I forget the name of the place. What was the first mortgage company? Like Garden State or something?
Yeah, Garden State Home Loans.
I heard about it because I hired a guy named Z
Yeah,
to
yeah,
build
yeah.
out my CRM, and he kept showing me this Garden State thing, like, we can do something similar to this, and this is what I built here. I'm like, Garden State, Garden State. And then that's the first time I heard your name. And and then I was like, oh, this dude at least did everything that I want to do. Like he's already like done a lot of it, right? I'm like, that's cool. And then I see you moved into, I think AIM was the next one, right?
Yeah, so Garden State Home Loans, and then, kind of AIM and Arrive simultaneously kinda went, within a couple months of each other went.
So the question I have is, you had a successful mortgage company and you left and to go be a politician kind of. Why would you do that?
There was these are great questions looking back. Because it was a very simple life at that time. I think for one, I had a really big curiosity about how to become a CEO of a big company. So, there was a big part of AIM, which was exploratory of like, hey, I want to get access to the Matt Ishbias. I want to get access to the Phil Shoemakers, these leaders of big mortgage companies. And I want to learn. I want to learn from them. There was another part that I really want to learn from other brokers, and I want to kind of bring a broker, community together. I realized after, the year leading up to building AIM that brokers didn't communicate with each other. And as I would go on advisory councils for, with UWM would have advisory councils, different lenders we worked with had advisory councils, and I would talk to brokers for the first time. I just realized how far ahead we were at Garden State Home Loans. Like nobody was building technology in their broker shop at that point. And I realized how much these companies lack systems and processes. So, the thing that really got me fired up to do the brokers, the AIM movement was like number one, I was super pissed off when I learned that a lot of the lenders we did business with, we were brokering loans to, were really just churning our business. Like, I'm not going to say names anymore because this is a prior life that I would do this. But at that time, 2 or 3 of our top lenders, we learned every time we were really good. We were direct to consumer, so we were really good at retaining our past clients. And we'd call them and like 3 out of 4 would be, "Oh, I already refinanced with so and so, the lender we did the loan with, we brokered the loan with." So I had really developed a fire about this, and I started to talk to other brokers about it, and I realized that none of the other brokers knew this was a thing. They all were like, "Are you sure? That sounds like a coincidence." I'm like, "No, we got the data." It's like, we were closing 3 to 400 loans a month, and back then that was a lot for a broker shop. And we're like, "Man, like 60% of our loans have been refinanced over the last year." And we showed them all the data, and it was all manual at that point. There was no Redders or these data platforms like we have today. It was all manual, just calling the borrowers and asking them. So when I saw the other brokers respond to that, I was like, man, there's something here. Like this is a group of people that needs to be rallied together. And I started Brawl, which was brokers rallying against wholesale lenders, and that turned into AIM because of the amount of interest the broker community rallied around that effort. But while the initial thing was all about protecting our past clients, what really the elixir for the broker community was like, they just need to talk to each other. These were guys, they weren't even competitors. They were just living in their little silos, and there was no community. And all it took was a Facebook group and a couple events to get them all together. And then the thing really took off. So, it wasn't about like it turned into kind of like a politician type of role because to be honest with you, one of the hardest jobs of being involved in the broker community is there's a lot of egos, way more today than there were then. And they don't work for you. So, like, getting everybody to, fall in line is really hard. So it became a very challenging job, and it was a pretty thankless job, but I'm really proud of it because a lot of great things came out of it, one of which the broker community became very strong. 2, I think a lot of technology came into the broker marketplace because I think for the first time, these technology companies, enterprise companies were like, "Oh, these guys aren't just a bunch of little one-man shops, like, we can actually sell them and package them product." And I think for the lenders, um, an eye opener happened where it was like, "Oh, wait, these guys are all talking. There's some accountability here. Like, we can't just sell servicing to whoever we want, or we can't just poach their clients." For the first time, it was like, "Wait, they've lifted up the veil and they know what's going on. And if we break the rules, we'll end up on their blacklist and they won't send us business. So I think a lot of positive things came out of that period of time.
I'll I'll vouch for it. I remember when all of it started coming together. I even donated and joined, in that whole stuff. And uh, but I saw some real power come to it. And what I mean by it is there was a couple things in particular that I remember happening. Number one, you started seeing wholesale lenders saying, "Yeah, I want to be known as a company, right? Because this group is rallying the troops, and if I don't conform and do what's right for them, I'm gonna get blackballed, right?" And I thought that was powerful because together as one voice, it really is so powerful. But yet nobody would ever come together,
Yeah.
right? We were all just too small and too individual. And I don't remember back then, were there the big mega brokers
No,
back then? It
no,
didn't exist, right?
it didn't exist.
What was like the biggest size company back then?
So Garden State Home Loans was the first. We were the number one broker in the country. We were doing 1.8 billion a year. So we were number one. C2 Financial was number two. They were doing about a billion and a half. And I would say C2 Financial was like the first mega broker. Like they had been around. They were only in California at that time. I think they had like 500 LOs or 600 LOs or something like that then. But there wasn't all of these other guys that have come along in the last 8 years. They didn't exist at that point. And that's another thing that kind of came out of that moment was innovation. Like all of a sudden people saw this as a big market to tap into, and all of a sudden you start to see this concept of mega broker shops.
It was interesting during that period of time. I remember I got an EPO, which I rarely got, but I got an EPO, and you guys actually told me to submit it to you guys, like to call you guys,
Yep,
and you guys negotiated it for me.
I
I was
remember.
like, how about that?
I was looking at our text message, our DMs on Facebook, and because we did communicate back then, and I saw that message that had come through in reference to the EPO.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's so
I should
funny.
have gone back. I didn't even know that was okay. But I mean, that was amazing, right? There was so much that came together for it. Now, I don't want to dwell on negative stuff, but at the same time, I got to say, I remember thinking, I love this guy. I love the concept. I love all the work, and then all of a sudden, one day, I didn't. I was like, man, now it's just getting ugly. It's
Yeah,
getting it's getting. There's too much rhetoric, right? There's too much smack talking, like on a basketball court type thing, right? And
100%.
and it stopped being professional. And you can talk as much as or as little as you want about this, but I gotta say, like, I was so disappointed because I like to consider myself more of the classier version of the mortgage guy, and I thought for once, like, hey, this is coming together, right? Like, I want my name behind a classy entity that is bringing us together. And then all of a sudden, I was like, man, I don't want anything to do with this,
Yeah.
right? Like, this isn't cool. What happened during that period of time? Like, why did it go there?
I think it's very emblematic of what's going on in our political system. And what happens is like, it doesn't even matter in politics what your beliefs are at a certain point. If you have to cater to your core, your base, and Republicans, Democrats both have their base, and their bases are moving further and further to the edge of their side. So like liberals have gone way liberal. The Republicans have gone way, conservative. And what used to be this middle ground, it disappears. It's just extremism. And I think for me at that time, that's what happened. And obviously I'm not proud of those parts of what we did. I really would love to go back and, make some adjustments. But I think what happened was, there was this dialogue that, emerged, which was retail versus broker, and it just got the extreme edges became the norm. It was just like if you couldn't be retail, it was like either you're a broker or you're a piece of shit. and that dialogue, it was just not healthy. And realistically speaking, I wish it could have been different. But I also kind of look back and say, there's a lot of learning lessons that were that have come from that I think positively are contributing to AIM today. And then what Greg Share is doing with all of us. And I do think that we're in a much better place today when it comes to the continuity of the industry.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a lot of good all came from it. Just hindsight, right? Like you already said, you wish you could go back and do things differently. And there's a million things that I've done that I wish I could go back and do differently. Uh, that wisdom comes with age, right? And what else does it come with? A lot of bad situations that you learned from, right? Things you did that you weren't proud of, and then that's how you learn. That's how you become better. Uh, so now we move on past that, and this is that other hat you wore. Now I think one of the greatest softwares out there for brokers is Arrive,
Absolutely.
and you know what did we have before? It was Calyx, like Calyx Point. That's all we had.
Yeah.
And I've now, right, as Ethos Lending, um, I was on Arrive, loved it, but I left for a little period of time because I was trying to create software. I was trying to create things, and I just couldn't get it out
Yeah.
of Arrive. I couldn't get what I wanted. But I went to 3 other softwares, and I now full circle have come back because none of them are nearly anywhere as good as what Arrive is, right? It's just I remember when I first switched, I thought, "Oh, everybody's gonna hate me. Everybody's this is gonna be the most, excruciatingly painful thing I have to do." And within minutes of somebody working in it, they never went back to point,
Yeah.
never even bothered, right? It was just straightforward from there.
Yeah, it was, that was one of the biggest goals coming out of leaving Garden State Home Loans was we had built a proprietary platform. You described it. What Z had told you about. We had built our own kind of LOS, CRM connectivity device in Salesforce that connected with our lender partners in Salesforce. And what we learned is like, man, we've got 50 people in our little mortgage brokerage in South Jersey, and we're doing 1.8 billion in business. And, 1.8 billion in business for 50
That's a
people.
shit ton of business
And you
for
got to
50.
remember, this is in 2015, 2016 when the conforming loan limit was 417. Like today, it's doubled. So we were doing a boatload of units. But we were doing it because we had this connection with Salesforce and UWM, and we've really created our own, client would come in through Flowify, and our LOS was in Salesforce, and Salesforce would connect to UWM. It was unbelievable. And the vision that I had was like, man, well, what if we could create a real platform that instead of just this patchy thing that we put together with one lender, what if we created a marketplace where all of the lenders were connected to it and all the brokers were on it? And now instead of the broker having to export 3.2s and instead of them having a bolted on POS and a pricing engine over here, what if it was all one system? So immediately when I started AIM, that was like one of the first things I was focused on was like, hey, how do I build this? I'm not a technology guy. So first it was like I needed to get the lenders on board because if I could get the lenders on board, the brokers would get on board. So first I went to all the lenders one by one and I got them all to sign 3-year contracts. Their only thing was like I didn't build anything yet. So I was like, we love the vision. And if you build it and get 1,000 users on it, we're in. So I got like 20 contracts signed. And these were 3 years, very profitable contracts, but it was all contingent upon building the platform. So then at our first AIM event, I presented Arrive to the broker community. I said, "Hey, we haven't built this, but this is what we're gonna build, and the lenders are connected, and it'll be one user experience. And we need you to pre-register because if we get a lot of pre-registered, people to sign up, then we can go raise the capital to build this." We got like 15,000 LOs to pre-register overnight. It was unbelievable what kind of interest we had. So then we went out, raised the capital, and then it was, how do you build it? So at that time, I had talked to Cloud Virga, if you remember them. I talked to Flowify. I talked to LendingPad. And we originally were going down the path with Cloudberry. But it was very clear to us early on that they could not execute on the vision that I had for the platform. We were working with them for 3 to 6 months and it was just getting nowhere. So I had been spending all of my time doing demos of different tech platforms to see if I could find a platform that we could build Arrive with. And I came across this guy, Harish Tejwani, who was he didn't have a platform, but he had built a lot of different technology for different companies. He built a pricing engine for Wells Fargo. He built all these different things. And when he was showing it to me, I was like, man, if you put all these things together, we got a platform. And when I went to our investors in the platform, I said, hey, I want to pivot away from Cloudverga and I want to go all in on Harish. And they had interviewed Harish and they got to know him. They're like, Anthony, this guy hasn't built anything. How can you're going to bet our whole company on this guy? So all the shareholders basically sold. They were like, "We're out. We're giving up. This is, was buy our shares back." So I bought all their shares back for pennies on the dollar. I went all in on Harish. I sold him, the company, and it was the single best decision that, we could have made. And the reason why is the vision was to build the platform. And today we have the best technology in the mortgage industry because we found the right guy and we went all in on the right guy. And ultimately, like for me, like I only had one end goal. It wasn't to become a billionaire building technology. It was to build a mortgage company that had technology that could make me a billionaire. Like that was the goal. And I truly believe that Arrive is a platform that will continue to get better. And I think they're only, they just started building the platform in 2019. So, you're talking about a very short life in comparison to a lot of legacy tech, but I'm very excited for it. And I think eventually one day we're all going to look back and be like, wow, that is what actually made the broker channel the channel to be in.
I mean, I think it's already there. I don't think we have to look back, right?
Yeah.
I believe that today. And I know from my perspective, my biggest headache as a broker is simply the one fact that I can't have a system that brings everybody together,
Yeah.
right? And it's so frustrating versus the IMBs seem to have that, right? And it is a little bit easier. Um, One thing, just to pivot a little bit, but come back to something earlier when you were talking about how the wholesale lenders, right? And everybody was churning our clients. But recently I was trying to bring this guy on, right? Someone was recruiting and I'm sitting there talking to him. And of course, that age old debate, like if you're a broker, you lose all the control, right? Like you don't have any control over anything. And that's what they've been fed on the IMB side. And then from our side, it's like, yeah, and your pricing is just a bunch of dog shit because you got all this control and it costs so much. And I always say the same thing, like, all right, let's just pretend rates drop to 3% today, right? How busy are you gonna get?
Yeah.
Really busy. And if you got really busy at your IMB, how long would it take to get something underwritten? Because remember, everybody at the company just quadrupled all their business, right? 10x it. All of a sudden, your turn times, you're not going to be able to fund a loan in 60 days. I just can't see it.
Yeah.
Versus on our side right now, we can spread it out if we want to, and we have the power of going to these big companies like Rocket and UWM that can handle that kind of stuff.
Yep.
They don't go from 24 hours to 7 to 10 days. They go from 24 hours to 48 hours, right? Like we have a lot more control than people think. But the one thing that I find really interesting, unless you're with one of the really big guys, the vast majority of IMBs actually sell their loans immediately.
Yeah.
And and then every one of those guys are fighting to keep their client against the servicer. At least, and this is a lot to do with what you guys did at AIM in those early years, at least we have that kind of protection.
Yeah.
Now, for the life of me, I can't figure out why some brokers don't go to the right banks,
Yeah.
right? It's like you're going to this bank where you know they're going to sell it. You just now put a target on your client in 6 months, right? Or sooner sometimes. So I believe that as brokers, right, we have to make better, more intelligent decisions on where we send our loans. And it shouldn't always be on price because uh, the price all too often is so negligible that you're not, you can't say you're saving your client any money by going there. You're giving them terrible service most of the time. And then this uncertainty of where their loan is going to end up and how many times it's going to sell, which is very aggravating for a client when that happens, right? Versus we as loan originators need to make better decisions up front of who we work with.
Yeah.
So I've always appreciated what AIM did at the very beginning because it finally brought that to the forefront. It's crazy, man. In my day, right, when I was originating, my best year is 156 million. I think altogether in all of those loans, I used a total of 10 banks, but 98% of it all went to one bank.
Yeah.
Why? Because I had control, I had consistency, and I had predictability, right? It's like learn. I hope everybody listening here, whether if you're IMB, hey, listen, first of all, it doesn't matter. A good loan officer, mortgage advisor will be successful. It doesn't matter where he's at, will be successful. But believe it or not, you actually have a lot more control than you think when you're in this broker space because you get to choose where your loan is going to go. You get to choose how it's going to be underwritten, right? By choosing where. And that truly does dictate the future of what your client's going to experience after it's done. Because remember, if you think at that at that level of all that matters is when it's in your hands, you're failing. You're
Yeah.
failing your client.
Yeah.
You got to think about what the long-term effect for your client is as well. So I just kind of wanted to address that a little bit because I do feel we have a lot more control in our broker space than we're given credit for.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that I face as an owner is I have I don't have enough business to feed all of the companies that I wanna feed. Like, I have such strong partnerships, and, like, I wish I could give them more business. And, when I say strong partnerships, it's like, I am very like, we are so integrated with our top 5 lenders. Like, you have UWM, you have eLend, you have Windsor, you have the Loan Store, you have NewRez. Like, we work closely with these companies on how we improve our operational experiences. When we have friction, we can go to them and get stuff done. Like, when I started in the broker space, like, you gotta think, when I started Garden State Home Loans in 2011, um it was bad, dude. It was a bad time to be a broker. Like, nobody wanted to be a broker at that time, and I don't even know why I wanted to be a broker. It's just something about not working for the man that was, like, my attitude at the time, but, like, dude, like, our top lender was Fifth Third Bank. You know how long it took to get an initial underwrite with Fifth Third? 60 days. You had to do a 90-day rate lock for a 60-day initial approval. But, like, it was slim pickings of lenders at that point, and you couldn't get shit done anywhere. And here we are fast forward to this time, and, like, our lenders are bending over backwards to help us have scalable processes, help us, connect systems to, their LOSs so we get better data, um, dedicate resources to us so that we can close loans faster, give us capital markets advice so we understand the rate stack and we understand market conditions and we don't make stupid decisions. Bail us out when we screw up because I mean, like at the end of the day, we all screw up. Loan goes sideways. We didn't submit the right thing. We didn't get the loan pre approved correctly. They bail us out. They always have our back. What I love about this channel now is very different than what I loved about it 10 years ago, because 10 years ago is when I started AIM. What I love about it now is that, like, we have, and thanks to UWM, by the way, because they've created this, they created such competition among the lenders because everybody is striving to compete with UWM, that all of these other guys are just getting so good. They're getting so good, man. Like my number 5 lender is within a day of my number 1 lender. 10 years ago, my number 5 lender was a month out from my number 1 lender. So I'm so proud of how far the channel has come, and I think ultimately that competition is what's gonna continue to drive rates down because these companies are all competing to lower their expenses through technology, which means better pricing, and for the loan originators that, are serving clients, hopefully more product to serve more clients.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on it is it's so awesome that we are their customer, that they are fighting for our business, which is so great because on the other side, right, on the banking side, you don't have that. We have all these different channels, but we also have everybody competing, trying to get us to say, "Yes, I'll use you," right? And there's something special about that because they want the deal to get done on the IMB side, and I'm not gonna knock it because I have a lot of friends on the IMB side, right? But you don't have all those options.
No.
It's a lot more limited. So I truly I went to the IMB side. I was broker from the very beginning up until 2012. And from 2012 to 2016, I went IMB. And that's when, so after 2008, I kept my company for a while. 2012, I finally folded it and just said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And became a branch manager. And, it was kind of nice for a while, I'll be honest with you. Nobody had to come to me and said, "Hey, can I get an advance on my loan that's closing?" Right? Like I didn't have to, I could just point and say, "You got to go ask them." Right. And I didn't have to worry about anything. It was really nice after getting beat up in 2008. But fact of the matter is, I wasn't having fun.
Yeah.
When I got back to the broker space, I started having fun again. And that is really what changed everything. So I love our broker space. I love that we have some big players now that are in it and successful, and just continuing to flourish. And I think we got so many more great things coming in our space. So and you're a lot to thank for that. So that I want to thank you for.
Thank you. I
Uh,
appreciate that.
yeah, man. So let's kind of move forward now into today, right? You start UMortgage. I don't, I still don't know how you got as big as you got as fast as you got. I was just like, man, I'm sitting here grinding away, trying so hard to do it, and it feels like you announced your opening, and then within like minutes, you somehow had hundreds of people there. And I don't know what the real story is about how all that worked, but I was like, what the hell did what? How did he do that? How did he grow so fast?
Well, I think number one is like, there's a benefit to, for the previous, you know, 3 years I had been running AIM. So like I don't think there's anybody in the country over that 3 year period of time. I don't think there's any thousand people that talked to more brokers than me over that 3 year period of time. Like I spent my entire life in front of brokers. So, between the events, we would have anywhere from 500 to 2,000 brokers at an event, webinars, Facebook group had 15,000 people in it. Like I just had a massive audience. So I think there was like the trailing effect was like when I started the company, I had a lot of people say, "Hey, I want to join your company." So, there's some positive there. I think, ultimately though, while some people might be like, "Oh, you got instant growth." It's like, yeah, but it presented another problem because when you build a company organically, you get to build your culture and your DNA is in it. Like when I built Garden State Home Loans, like I met every employee. I was part of their onboarding process. Like nobody didn't deal with me. When you build a 400 person company and you don't know half the people there, guess what? The culture's not gonna be really tight. The DNA, your values are not gonna be really aligned. So while a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon because, that's what people do, it's not exactly what, we wanted to build. So, the first half was this mass trajectory of this. The second half has been very much a lot of like, "Oh, wait, we gotta get the wrong people off the bus, and we gotta focus on building this culture." Because similar to you, what you said earlier, which really resonated with me, is I don't just do this for money. I do this because I really like love the work. And if I look around and I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I just stop showing up. It's not for me. So, for me, it's like I think it's a gift and a curse. Fast growth is great, except if it's not the kind of growth that fulfills you and lights you up and makes you happy every day. I think now we're on a much better trajectory where we've got the right couple hundred people on the team. They're all bought in, they understand the values, and, now we're growing incrementally, but with the right people.
Yeah, and you nailed it with those three letters, DNA.
Yeah.
And I use that all the time. And my wife was basically getting on me a little bit about something, and she was saying how, you know, why am I doing everything? Right. And I said, I'm not, but I said, I'm starting everything because I want my DNA in it from the very beginning. And then I'm finding the right person to take that over. So in this early stage for us, which we've been at it for 2 years, but you know, I use those three letters all the time. And it's so important to me. I said, I have to have my DNA into every aspect of this. Otherwise, the whole thing just becomes another company. And I think what's really going to make us so special is that, and I use these words, right? Because it's important to me, even though some people think they're corny, but I love people.
Yeah.
And if you can't love people, I don't want you here. It's not right. Even all the way down to like when somebody says, I hate realtors. They're so demanding. They're so this. They think they're this. And I'm like, why do you hate them? They're out there hunting every single day for our food. How can you hate these people? And guess what? If they're getting on you about something, maybe consider the fact that you're not doing a good job. If they're calling you to find out what's going on with their file, probably consider that you're not doing a good job.
Yep.
That's the right way to look at it, right? And I think it's so important that I want my legacy when this is all over. It's not just for my kids and all that. Like I have two kind of legacies that I want to leave. One is to my family as to what kind of man their dad was, right? And husband and all that. But the other one is what did I bring to our industry? And for me, it's truly loving and serving people, like first, but number two, a professionalism to our industry. Like I hate the word loan officer. To me, a loan officer has a job, right? A mortgage advisor of some sort, however you want to call yourself, but more of the advisor role, that's a career.
Yeah.
And when you have a career, that's you care more about it. And that's at the end of the day, I remember I wrote an article on LinkedIn and I knew I was going to have a lot of people that weren't happy with me, but it was interesting because a lot more actually said amen to that. And I think it should be harder to become a mortgage advisor. I think you should have a harder test. You should go through more stuff, right? Like it shouldn't be that easy. I know
Yeah.
that kind of sucks, but at the same time, it's like there should be a barrier of entry because we have a very important role in somebody's life. And if we don't take it seriously, I think we're screwing people over.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I will say over the last year, watching my son become a loan officer, I think the barrier to entry is really large. And I don't think it's the safe test is not the barrier to entry. The barrier to entry is going and building a business. Like watching my son do 6 to 7 open houses a weekend, working 7 days a week. I remember the one of the best parts, like 3 months into this role, he came into my office so excited. He's like, "Oh, I got 12 meetings scheduled this week." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, man. Good luck." And then I went and checked in on him on the end of, like, Tuesday, and he's like, looking totally defeated. I was like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "They all canceled." He's like, "They all didn't show up." And I was like, "When you get good, they'll show up. Right now, you're not very good, so they don't show up." But I will say, as being close to young people trying to break in this business, it's reinvigorated me because it is hard, and I don't think we remember how hard it was because you and I are 2 guys that have been doing this for so long that, maybe to a degree we take it for granted because we're so good at it, and we've been so good at it, and it's in our blood now. But after seeing him over this last year, he just closed his first deal 8 months in. I was like, "Man, like, this really reminds me of why I love this business." It is hard. It is so freaking hard, and, it's worth it.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I'm going to tell a quick story, then I want to get back to a concept that I'm curious what your opinion is. Right, barrier of entry. That's the concept. Don't let me forget. But going back to how hard it is when you first get started, and it's not easy if you're doing it the old school way, right? Where you're trying to get referrals from people as opposed to buying leads. And I remember, well, I had a conversation yesterday with one of my guys. He's been on now for about 3 months. He still hasn't brought a deal in. he was an LOA at some previous company and thought he was ready to become his own man. And, and I had a talk with them because in the beginning he was setting up calls with me for coaching. He was doing, and I'm like, man, as long as you do what I tell you to do, I'll always show up for you. If you don't, then why would I waste my time if you're not going to go do it? Right. And I checked in with him because I haven't heard from him in a while. And ultimately, what it boiled down to is if he had a job and I told him what to go do, like I paid him to, he would go do it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, most people can't seem to go do that for themselves. And it's mind boggling to me when you would do it for practically minimum wage, but you won't do it when you have the ability to make an ungodly amount of money. All you have to do is make some calls, right? And keep showing up and keep refining and refining your skills, and you get better and better. And I told him, like I think with your son, like I love that saying, you get good and they'll show up.
Yep.
At the same time, keep at it, because once they see how hard you work and how much it means to you, then they will also show up, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to know that you deserve it. So, um, so that said, question for you now. Brand new people. Well, let me rephrase it. If you were to start all over again, would you buy leads or go work for a lead place to get like a whole bunch of, quick, you know, or would you go out and do the same thing like your son's doing and go meet a bunch of people, go set up appointments, get rejected, refine your pitch, do it again over and over and over again? Or would you be an LOA somewhere and and kind of learn it that way? What do you think is the right way to bring somebody in?
I think it's somewhere between being an LOA and self gen. I don't think the lead model, like I started lead model. I spent the majority of my first everything I did for the first half of my career was in a direct to consumer model. I was an LO, had my own broker shop, the whole nine. I think that business is I think you're not in control in that business. So that's the one thing where I did very well in it. I made a ton of money, but when lead flow is slow, you don't make money. You're not in control. So I think that's a very real thing. I think the self-gen business to me, it has the biggest upside. It's like you're in control. That's why it's basically it's free agency in the mortgage industry right now. Loan officers are getting $1 million signing bonuses and multi-million-dollar signing bonuses because they control the customer and companies are willing to pay them for the customer. So that tells me that's the best model for the LO. Um, I would personally say for me, I would go all in on being a self-gen LO and figuring it out. For, my son, I would probably have advised him to be an LOA. And the reason why is just like, you know, he is somebody that needs to figure it out before he has confidence in selling. For me, I was always confident in selling without figuring out. Like I always had like I'll figure it out later mentality. But that's just a personality thing. So, but either way, I would say if you're a young person, being a self-gen person is the way to go. I really believe that.
I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this question. Okay. Uh, how old are you?
41.
41. Okay. So I think back in your day, did you swipe to meet girls or did you have to go out and work at it to meet them?
I had to go out and work at it. But I also was like had my first kid when I was like 19. So like I really didn't even ever date. Like I was married and had kids so early that you know, I had a very short dating life. But let's
Okay.
keep going down this route.
All right. Well, let's go down the hole there. So, one day I was coaching a group of young male realtors. My agent, my LO said, "Hey, can you coach us? Can you coach this group up a little bit?" Right? I'm working with them. Like, sure. So they wanted to do like open house stuff, right? And I'm like, all right, well, we got to role play. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but we got to role play. And I'm asking questions. I'm like, go ahead. I'm the client. I'm walking in, and they just started asking me questions, and every single question I answered, his response was perfect. And then perfect. "Hey, you have dogs? Yep, I got two. Perfect." I'm like, all right, I got to just stop right here. I go, first of all, you got to stop at the perfect every single time. Like you got to have a little more personality than that.
Yeah.
This whole business is about personality. And then I thought, I got to get through to these kids a little bit in a different way. I'm like, how many of you guys are married? None. Single? They all rose their hand. I'm like, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to speak a language that I think you guys are going to understand. When you go to a bar and you're trying to meet women, and I go down this like this whole and I they're all looking at me like glazy eyed, right? They're all in their mid-20s. I'm like, do you guys go to bars to meet women? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh my goodness. All right. Ground in the world is going to a bar to meet a woman. Everything you do from the moment you walk in is being noticed, right? And if you're not being noticed, that's the same thing as what's happening to you right now.
Yep.
You're not being noticed. That's the problem. Right. So, anyways,
So
that
true.
was my story. It was like I look at it and say it's like you finally work up enough courage to go up to the girl, but what do you say? Can you grab her attention within the first 3 seconds? That's your hook, right?
Yep.
Like, is your hook strong? If your hook's not strong, you're done. If you get 3 seconds, now you got another five. What do you got in the five? And then when you make it that long, right now you gotta get a little bit more in depth, and you got to show that you know what you're talking about with your clients. This is the same exact thing. And then after it's all over with, what's the follow up? What do you got for your follow up game? Are your clients going to come back?
Yep.
Are they going to refinance with you? Are they going to buy another house with you? So I view it as a very similar training ground,
Yep.
and I can relate so many of those things back from the days that I was single. Interesting. All right. So now I want to move back over to you mortgage a little bit, right? Like you obviously have, I mean, I'm just gonna say a big set of balls because you just go big on everything you do. and and you somehow manage to put it all together every time. And with you mortgage, from my understanding and what you just said, you grew and then you came down a little bit and now you're growing with a little bit more purpose, which I
Yep.
love. Uh, where where do you want to see you mortgage end up? Like, what's your vision of you mortgage, both from numbers standpoint, but also from a moral standpoint? Like, what's your vision of the perfect mortgage company?
Yeah, for me, the perfect mortgage company is a company that is led with clear values and integrity, is built on systems and processes that are followed by all. And because you have universally adopted processes and systems, the results become predictable. And I want an organization where the people here, I don't ever have to wonder if they're gonna leave. Like they are, it's a combination of loyalty, but it's also a combination of value. And having an organization where the sales systems and processes are, super dialed in and our LOs are consistently increasing their volume, but also consistently getting better at their sales processes and their conversion and the things that make up their business. That is the dream. Like, to me, I wanna be the best, I don't wanna be the biggest. And I think at one point I wanted to be the biggest, but that's not actually what I want. I really would be completely good if we had 500 LOs that were all growing by 25% per year and all improving in every single metric in their business by 10% a quarter. If I can do those things, then I'm running an incredible business. The people feel valued. They're able to really build wealth for their families. And we've got a special company. So that's really what I'm striving for at this phase is how do we get to, that 4 to 500 LO mark, but really in a situation where those LOs are, we're not sitting here with LOs doing 6 loans a year. We're sitting here with LOs that are doing 6 loans a month and are growing and improving their lives and businesses.
Great answer. And I'm going to start bringing this towards the end. I want to go personal for a minute. I will say that without knowing you, I didn't like you. for a period of time. And we've talked through some of this stuff, right? Like when AIM started flipping and all that stuff, and I was like, man, this guy's such an a hole, right? And he's so New Jersey. uh, but there's been this very noticeable change in your character, like so noticeable that I actually started liking you. And it was weird because you know I mean, I don't care. Like, why would I ever care about Anthony Casa, right? I don't even know you. But yet I started liking you because of this moral character of what, like the word ethos, right? Like your ethos changed. And if you could, right, if you want, if you're comfortable with it, what caused your ethos to change over this period of time?
Being humbled is part of life. I think for me, I've had to go through a lot of humbling experiences. And ultimately, as you go through these experiences, you either become reflective and you start to look at how you got to where you're at. And you can either have the perspective of boo hoo, it's the world's fault, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, or you can take accountability over it. And for me, I really started the process, with my sobriety, with a lot of changes that I've made in my personal life, reflecting on my behavior. And I realized that it's not that I've made adjustments because I want to be the more likable. Like that's not the goal. That was not the objective at all. Um, I want to live my values in a way that's consistent every single day. And in order to do that, my behavior changed. And the way that people interacted with me changed, and the way that people received my message changed. But I also value things very, very differently. Like maybe a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have even done this podcast because I would have been like, well, what's in it for me? To me today, it's not about that. It's about, being present. It's about giving. It's about surrounding yourself with people that share your values. I think in my first conversation with you, I was like, man, Dino's got great energy and he cares a lot about the industry. And, he's not a money guy. He's a people person. I was like, we've got a lot in common. So, to me, it's like, hey, this is somebody I could see spending some time with. So all that to say, it's just like I'm evolving. And, I think at the end of the day, like one thing I would tell everybody out there is if you're not embarrassed about the person you were, in your last 10 years or 5 years, you're probably not growing fast enough. Like to me, I'm embarrassed, but I had to be that person to know that's not what I want to be today. And in order for me to be the best version of myself, I had to at one point be that guy. And I certainly hope I'm even better going forward. I hope I'm able to make a bigger impact, and I hope I'm able to be more involved in my kids' lives and all those things. So I hope humility finds everybody. I think there's a saying, you're either humbled, you've either been humbled or you're gonna be humbled. And I've been humbled and I respect it.
Yeah, man, I in 2008, right, I was 36 years old, was on top of the world, had a bunch of it, I owned like I think like 8 houses or something at the time, making a bunch of money. Life was great. Drove a convertible, right? Like in Southern California, like what else could I ask for? And then I got humbled. And I remember I don't ever want to go through that again. Like it was brutal, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I became such a better person.
Yeah.
And I look back and I'm like, and I loved your answer. It's like, I guess I had to be that guy in order to be who I am today. And maybe the nudge that I was getting wasn't enough. Maybe I just had to get punched in the face
Yep.
because I wasn't, smart enough to or alert enough to be able to recognize what was coming. And so for that, I would never look back and say, I wish that didn't happen because I love the outcome of what happened, years later, but I love the outcome. And that's, I love your answer for that reason as well. So I'm going to start bringing it to end. What's your favorite book? Or if you have a hard time with that, couple books.
You know, I mean, this is gonna be very timely of a situation, but I'll say, I'll give you a couple. I think one of my favorite business book is Good to Great. I've probably, listened to that book at least a dozen times. I think it's a really great book. My
So real
favorite
quick, that's my favorite book.
Yes,
I
good.
just bought it for my daughter who's a sophomore in college, and said, "Honey, if you want to make a difference, this is the book."
That is the book for sure. I think from a health perspective, I would say The Comfort Crisis is a book about it's both about health and spirituality and big goals and really challenging yourself to leave your comfort zone. I think that's a really big one. The guy who wrote it is he's sober and he went through a whole bunch of things. And it's a great story. The last one that I would say that I think is just like a really fun book, and I always recommend it to people is Living with the Seal by Jesse Itzler. It's basically the story of he lived with David Goggins for 30 days and what his experience was then. That's a book that you'll genuinely enjoy. So I'm a big reader. I love reading. I try to go for 12 to 15 books a year. So those would be 3 winners that I'd say I highly doubt anybody's gonna read those books and not get value out of them.
I'm right in the middle of Buy Back Your Time with Dan Martell
Nice.
right now. It's a good one, right? Like,
Great one.
yeah. In fact, I just with today's technology, right? Like this is the fun stuff that I see what's happening. I was listening to it and I went on Claude and I said, okay, this is what I want to do. All too often, because of my personality, I'll be driving along, sitting on the toilet, thinking about whatever, any, it doesn't matter where or what, but I come up with these ideas, right?
Yep.
And then I just like usually email myself, but I'm trying to start cleaning that up a little bit and wanting to create a better system for it, right? But I want to make sure I'm utilizing my personal assistant or admin better than I have been. And so what I did is I got into Claude. I created on Notion a task management program.
Yep.
And the way I don't want to go to Notion to put in the task and all that. So the way it is I'm going to brain dump into Claude since I'm on it a lot. And Claude will determine if it's a Dino task or a Crystal task.
Mm.
It'll send it to this Notion database. And then we use Roam, like we don't use Slack. So we use this system called Roam, and that's our internal messaging. And then I created a chat group with just me and Crystal. Even though we have one going, I don't want to pollute like the day-to-day stuff. So this is a task one only. And now all I do is talk to Claude, I brain dump, it creates the tasks, and then it'll send a message in Rome stating that you have a new task to go look at and the due date is. And I'm just like, man, I love technology today. It's allowing us to do so many cool things because I don't think I would make the effort to go into Notion to create the task and apply it properly.
I
Pretty cool stuff.
It is so cool, and that actually brings me up the one thing I forgot to say, and I really this is an important one because if anybody's out there, I think this is a book that I need to share with us everybody. The single best book that has helped transform my life to become the version of me that I am, that I recommend to every one of my team members. My son's reading it currently, is called the book called The Slight Edge, and you, Dina, just gave me the inspiration for it. Is it's all about very small but consistent improvements that you make in your life. And what you just described is the way I look at technology. It's like when people that get overwhelmed with technology think about massive transformation. The way that you just described your self-management system, your task management system is like, hey, I started with this simple concept. I dump here, it sorts here, my assistant gets these things, I get these things. Man, like, holy cow. Can you imagine 20 years ago being able to have something like that? Like, that shit didn't exist. Like, that alone, if there's one takeaway people get from this interview is like what you just described, it's like, go implement that and your life's gonna be so much better.
Yeah, no, agreed. I told my 14-year-old specifically because he's getting into it, right? And he's loving all the AI stuff. And I'm like, I go, little dude, I go, I got something to tell you. There is no ceiling. It doesn't matter. He was 13 at the time. I go, it doesn't matter that you're 13. You can be a millionaire by next year. You really can. I said, you can create anything you can dream of, you can create. So I said, here it is. Like I paid for the version because he kept saying he was running out. And I was like, here it is. Dream away. But don't just dream and go nowhere. Dream and figure out how to implement,
Yep.
right? And then I got him Lovable, and I'm like, and then move it over here. Put something together that's physical, and you'll learn from it, even if it goes nowhere. I said, I don't care. I go, I will be so happy for you if I start seeing you do things, and then you'll see me support you even more if that's the case.
Yep.
And so he came up with his first app, and it wasn't too long ago. It was right when they got out of school, and he started getting kind of bored because he didn't have everything lined up yet, right? And he's like, when I get bored, I come to my app, and it has like a spinning roulette wheel type thing, and he spins it, and whatever it lands on, he has to do. And one of the things was find something in your room that you don't use anymore or don't play with anymore and sell it, make some extra money.
Yep.
I was like, I like that one. That's good.
Good.
A- Another one was go be nice to somebody in your family, right? And I was like, and then when you complete it, confetti goes off. And I was like, super basic, but so awesome.
I
Like,
love it. That's
great
awesome.
job, you know? All right, man. So last question. If I picked you up right now, dropped you off somewhere, let's call it New Mexico,
Uh-huh.
somewhere where you don't know anybody, right? I don't know if you know people in New Mexico. That's just the place I'm going to pick. And you have to make $1 million closing loans, not owning the company, not doing. Just, you're going to be a originator, and you can't see or talk to your family until you make $1 million. Now, you have all the knowledge you have, but you don't know anybody, and you got to start grassroots just like your son is right now. And you have just enough money. Like I'm going to give you an allowance to pay to cover your bills, a little bit extras to try a few things, right? And take people out to lunch, but that's it. You can't go buy business or do anything like that. Like, how are you going to make $1 million?
Um, First and foremost, I'm gonna find out where my ideal audience is. So, for me, open houses, I don't know where you're dropping me off if they have open houses, but like if you drop me off anywhere in the United States of America, the first thing I would do is look for open houses. Why? Because there's an agent that's trying to sell a house and there's buyers that are looking at houses. That to me just narrowed the entire scope down to that. So that would be one. Number two is I would lean into the communities and the things that I like doing, and I would do what I do today, which is just go all in on those things because I know that if I go to the gym 7 days a week, I'm super involved in some local networking groups here, YPO and whatnot. And to me, it's like those are things I like doing, and those are where people are successful, and I'm gonna find some people that are interested in buying homes there. So, like, it's like, "Hey, something I'm already doing, I'm doing it for the purpose of networking. Where do I see buyers, open houses? I'm gonna go there." And then the third thing that I would do, which I've consistently done in all my businesses, is I would lean on marketing. Like marketing has always been a big part of every single one of my businesses. So I would start connecting with every local real estate agent or financial advisor or professional on social media, unless that was a limitation that I wasn't able to have access to. And I would really focus on selling my product, my brand, and putting myself out there. And again, it's a giant filtering exercise is like, what do you attract? So, like, all the things that I just said, going to open houses, maybe 1 out of 20 realtors are gonna like you. Okay, great. If you do enough open houses, you'll get to 20 realtors pretty quickly. My networking group and my gym and the things that I spend time on, hey, you're gonna identify people that are like you that you wanna spend time with, and you're gonna start working out with them and spending more time with them. And then on social media, if you connect with enough people and it's a numbers game, maybe 1% of them actually like you and want to do business with you, and that's how you source, some leads. But like I would just repetitively do those things, and I think the compounding effects of those would lead to business.
I'm gonna ask you to break down two things for me in that strategy. Uh, First, what I love and what I want people to hear out of this, because you're not the only one. Uh, you're going back to old school,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Everybody keeps thinking technology, all this stuff, but the reality is and you nailed it when you said, if I go to an open house, there's a realtor that wants to sell a house, and there's people coming in that want to buy a house. I mean, that both of them are your targets, So, but what I want to break down is in that particular strategy, tell me how you're going to succeed in that strategy. What is the strategy to go to open houses? What works?
Well, I think number one is, your goal is to identify the people that take open houses serious. So like if I'm seriously doing this, the advice I give my son, because I've gone to a whole bunch of open houses, and to me, what you learn when you go to an open house is like you walk in the door, and if like the realtor that's hosting the open house wants to be anywhere but there, and they're not facilitating an experience, that's not a realtor. You just walk out the door. Just don't waste your time when you walk into an open house and the realtor greets you and they're super positive, and they want to show you the house and they're asking questions about you. It's like, oh, this is somebody that's taking this serious. They have an experience, they're facilitating. They're here to generate leads. They're not here to just do what their boss told them to do and stay at the house from 12 to 2 on a Sunday. They're here for a purpose. That's the kind of person I sit there and say, "Hey, I'm also looking to generate leads, and I'm really impressed with the experience you're facilitating. Do you work a lot of open houses?" For me, what my goal is to partner with a real estate agent like yourself that is committed to this experience. I want to sponsor open houses with them where we identify the houses that are going to get the most foot traffic. And the reason why is we want to get buyers in the door, and then we want to tag team them to work off of each other. While you're showing one the house, if another walks in, I'm taking the other one, and I'm working with you as a team. But our goal is like, hey, can we get 8 to 10 real leads? So on Monday, we call them together. We can role play, we can learn, the scripting, and we're going to call them together for the purpose of getting them pre-approved. Anybody I create as a client that's pre-approved is going to work with you, and anybody that you generate, you're going to refer to me. But together we have to work as a team. We'll be way more effective if we do that. So I think for me, it's like one part of it is identifying the agents you would want to do this experience with again in the future that have the most potential. And then two, introduce yourself, build a relationship with them. Don't sell them on you. Don't sell them on sending loans to you. Really identify as like, hey, I'm looking to build my business. Here's what I'm about. Here's what my values are about. Here's how I spend my time. Let me learn a little bit about you. And when that synergy clicks and you really build some trust, then it's like, okay, well, if we like each other, then yeah, like you said earlier, you made the analogy about dating. It's like it's the same thing. It's like, oh, we like each other, we want to spend some time together. Let's figure this work thing out, because obviously, if you're working open houses and I'm working open houses, we haven't made it yet. We're still trying to figure it out. So let's try to figure it out together.
Yeah, great. Love it. And then last piece you mentioned social. You didn't say much about it or dwell on it, but I do believe there is a piece there in today's world, and it's almost like going belly to belly with people. I mean, if you do it right. But what do you think your social strategy would be?
My social strategy would be not far off from what it is today, which is authentic content that for every 3 pieces of authentic content, I weave in a work piece of content. So, for me, it's like I talk about my sobriety, I talk about my health journey, I spotlight things I'm doing in my life with my kids and with people that I care about. I spotlight events that I do. I just did a mountain climbing challenge, and then I'll weave in, "Hey, this Thursday I'm hosting a webinar on joining UMortgage." But if I was a loan officer, I would focus on, "Hey, this Thursday I'm hosting a first-time homebuyer class at Jimmy's Pub in Newark," whatever that situation is. But I would focus on myself as the product, because we are, as salespeople, we are the product. I'm on this because of you, Dino. You're the product, and that's what attracted me to this. Same thing in business is people come to work for Dino or work with Dino because of you. And then you talk about the business piece, the client experience, the products that you have in your arsenal, the pricing advantages you have, the technology, and all those other things. So I don't know if I would change it too much. I would try to keep it to what's always worked for me, which is like authenticness of myself.
Last question. It's a yes or no answer. Actually, it's not a yes or no. It's a name. It's either Dino or Greg. Whose podcast did you like better?
Dino.
Yes. We're gonna cut that one and we're gonna ship it out to Greg right there.
That's hilarious.
Oh man, thank you so much for joining us here today. I do appreciate it. I also appreciate the authenticity of it all. And I look forward to seeing what else you do in our mortgage industry here for the back nine. If you're over the nine, I don't know if you got the back nine or if you're still thinking you're in the front nine, but you've been around, you've been doing this for a long time, so you brought a lot to our industry. I thank you for that, and again, looking forward to the rest of what you bring.
Well, thank you, man. This has been phenomenal. You're doing an amazing job, and I'll be rooting you on like you've been rooting me on. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. Guys, listen, if you guys enjoyed this, do me a favor, jump in, leave some comments somewhere, right? Like tell us you enjoyed it. Send me a personal message if you want. I I have a lot to share with you, and I love bringing good people on because they have a lot to share with you. And the lessons you can learn from people that have done it before, you know, you don't have to go through all of the hard times yourself. If you were smart about it, you would start leaning in to the people that actually have been through it. You can skip so much of the junk in between, right? I know some people need to go through it like I did and like Anthony did, but be smarter than us, right? Learn from us. And you will love our industry. I promise you, if you're struggling in this industry right now, stay consistent and change something. Don't keep doing the same thing. Change something and emulate what other successful originators are doing. That's how you get to where you need to be. But don't ever give up. The compound effect really does work. So thank you. We love you. We'll see you on the next one.